Hey, this is Greg, and welcome to this new edition of 5 Minute Fridays, where I cover one question or one topic in as close as I can to 5 minutes. And in this lesson, we're going over everything you need to know about frames and masking inside of Canva. Okay, let's get started. The inspiration for this lesson really came from a question I received from a viewer here on YouTube, and they said when I use the background remover and I place an image inside of a frame, the frame disappears. So let me just show you below an example of what they had going on. So if you have something with the background removed, we have a square frame over here, but then suddenly we drop it in. Where did that square frame go? I see my image, but it's not really in the shape of a square. So what happened here? So you might know what's going on here, but if you want to learn what's going on and everything you need to know about frames, let's carry on. So let's start with, what are frames in Canva? Well, frames in Canva act like containers which can hold a photo, a color, or a video, and they act like masks do in other programs like Photoshop, so you might be familiar with that terminology, mask, but in Canva they use the terminology frames, and they are predefined areas within your design where a certain element will show. So we have a frame right here. I can drop it in, and suddenly that's what we had going on there. Of course, I could come under here under my elements, and I could type something like nature up here. And let's just show you that we can drop videos in there as well. So now we have a video within a frame. And of course, if you click on the frame, you can also just drop a solid color in there. So frames can hold colors, they can hold photos, and they can hold videos. Canva frames can come in all different shapes and sizes, and there are even ways to make your own custom frames. But where do you find the frames within Canva? All these are frames right here, but where did I find these frames? Well, if you come on the Elements tab and you search for frames, you're going to find this category here, frames. Now, if you're under Photos and you see something like that, that's not the type of frame we're talking about here. We are talking about these custom Canva frames. So if you come under the All category, you see this here, Frames, see All, then you're going to see all these frames that have this same background of this cloud, this landscape. That lets you know it's a Canva frame. You can click any of these to add to your design. Now, all these are working the same way, and what happens is when you place something within a frame, it becomes contained within that frame. So all these images here, all these frames have the same photo, but they look different because they're contained within these frames that have different shapes. But I can right click on any of these and click detach image. Suddenly the image becomes detached from the frame, and then I can drop it back in. So Canva has lots of different frames you can choose from, but you can also create your own custom frames. And if you want to know how to create your own custom frame, I will link a video above and down in the comments. And also down in the comments, I will have a free cheat sheet to my 1-minute method for creating your own custom frames to use inside of Canva. You have to step out of Canva to do this, but with a free program, it's very quick. You can very quickly get something you can then import into Canva and have it act like a Canva frame. All right, so images can be resized or positioned within a frame. So to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to come on the image, you're going to click on it, and you're going to use this crop icon here. Then suddenly you're into this crop where you can then resize something within the frame. You can reposition it within the frame, click outside the frame to lock it into the frame again. Now, if you wanted to do that with a quicker method, you could just double click on it, and then suddenly that takes you right into the crop dialog. And again, you can reposition something, you can resize it, but you cannot bring the bounds of that photo within the bounds of the frame. So you see this blue bounding box? That blue bounding box cannot go in beyond the outside of the frame. So you see how I get stuck at the edges here? I can resize up, but then suddenly I can't resize beyond the bounds of the frame. So you are sort of contained by the bounds of the frame. You can't size down beyond that. But then click outside, and then suddenly you're committing that change, and you're back here looking at your image within the frame. Okay, now getting to that question of why a frame was disappearing earlier. Well, if the image within the frame is partially transparent, then those areas remain transparent within the frame. So the frame itself is essentially invisible once you add an element to it. When you're seeing it on the screen now, that's just sort of a placeholder. Let us know this is a Canva frame. But once we start using it, the frame itself disappears. So you may not notice that when you add in a full image like that, but if I hit Control Z and then suddenly with this here, we apply the background remover first, now we have all these transparent elements, pixels right around the photo. So now if we drop it in there now, Now suddenly we're seeing the frame at the bottom because it's touching that edge, but then other areas where it's not touching, we're losing the shape of that frame. Of course, if I were to click in here and drag this out and make it a lot bigger and put it on this side, then suddenly we're bringing back the frame on that side, but we're not quite touching on this side. So again, we have that transparency. So in the situation the student was describing, the frame wasn't disappearing. It only looked that way because you had transparent pixels within the frame. So because of this, suddenly you can do things like frame stacking. So let me just come over here. And so we have this image here, and let me just detach that image. So within the frame here, I just have a color. But then if I were to bring this image inside of this frame, then suddenly, because I have transparent pixels, part of that is going to show through to the image below. So now suddenly I can start stacking frames. I can add a border this way. I can add a background element this way using multiple versions of the frame. So again, here, just as an example of that, I could duplicate this. So let's just hit duplicate with this selected. Now I have two versions of the frame. Maybe I want this one here to be a background color, just a color. So I could do something like, let's make it this color here. Let's size it up. Let's take this, let's position that inside the frame like that. So in other words, you can do all these different things by stacking frames if you have transparency within some of the frames, or if you have frames behind other frames where the frame behind covers a larger area, then suddenly you can start to come up with all these interesting effects. Okay, so this is frames inside of Canva. Make sure you take advantage, you know how to use them, and if you want to come up with how to make custom frames so you can really take any shape you want, any shape at all, and turn it into a Canva frame, then check the comments below and make sure you download that free cheat sheet on my 1-minute method for creating a custom Canva frame. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this 5-minute Friday. May have gone a little bit over the time, but I'm going to try to keep these lessons short and quick, as close to 5 minutes as I can. So if you have a question, just submit a question in the comments below, and I will try to make it part of a future episode. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you soon.